Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining, and some of us are joining live. Some might be watching the video after the fact, but just as a heads up, we're doing a live stream from the middle of our Scrum Master class in Orange County. This is Larry Lawhead, one of our team coaches. I'm Scott Dunn, and if you're watching this on the video, because we upload things on YouTube, we're going through a few things around conflict and vulnerability, trust, etc. So there's some activity and action in the background. We're just having fun, trying to run an experiment of trying to share some more information about what we think is important that we don't have a chance to reach everyone out there. So I'll do a quick snapshot and a little bit of deep dive and conversation around topics that are on our minds now. Hope you find this useful, and there are other big topics that we'll be covering as well later on. I want to take advantage of do this now. So Larry and I were chatting some earlier in the class, and we actually had conversations around leadership before. And what does that look like to lead this change and go through some of this? And some of the things we've seen before, both at the team level, and I think at the leadership level. Yep. What does that look like for vulnerability, for entering conflict, not avoiding conflict? What does that look like at the team level and for the Scrum Master and also for leadership? And I'll start off by saying some things that I think that I've seen, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. There's some classic works out there I just really reference a lot that I think would be important. We mentioned some of these earlier in the class today, and that's the 5 dysfunctions of a team. And one thing I wanted to start off with what I used to joke, and there's a presentation I did a long time ago, and I called it the 2.5 dysfunctions, because we don't make it up to the top ones, but those bottom ones are so common, and they're an absence of trust and a fear of conflict. And the reason I think it's worth bringing up is we talk about leadership support and the role of leaders in an organization when they're trying to bring change, or where you've seen that they haven't brought change. And I feel like part of that is when people are still having conversations with them. And I just heard this recently where a manager is saying, well, I just told my team they had to do the overtime because my boss wasn't going to be open to the fact that the deadline's going to be pushed out again. Right, so here's a case of a manager of a team mandating overtime, and he's a nice guy, so I don't think it was an issue like, oh, he's just bad or mean. But it was this fear of conflict of going to his boss and saying, you're not going to like this, right? This is going to be tough to stomach, but here's the reality of that. So here's my issue with that. One is, what do you think prevents people from having that conversation? And 2, would leadership honestly want to know? And my experience is leaders want to know. They don't want to be surprised. They want to know. But what do you think gets in the way of some of that?
From what I've seen, one of the ideas is courage. You have to be courageous to say, no, we can't, or can I give you an alternative? So if you're all tightened up in your mind and you can't think, and you're afraid to get fired, or whatever your fear might be, then you're just going to freeze, like a deer in the headlights. But you have to be able to engage. For example, where you have to do overtime, why do we have to do overtime? What is driving that? Is there some business need that we can make a compromise on? A lot of times a manager will say you got to do overtime because he's used to just giving that command and everyone follows. Yeah. But as, say, a Scrum Master or a coach or whoever's involved in that conversation has to ask a few more questions than just, okay, fine, I'll go back and talk to the team.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's courage. One of the major issues I see there in this particular instance would be courage.
Right. So if I could add on to that, I do think at some point, we talked about it actually in the class earlier today, is what are you there for? If you're there to bring change, you kind of look at this as an obstacle towards what your goal is. But if your goal isn't necessarily to bring about change and do this with the teams, then you're kind of choosing, am I really going to enter that battle or not? Right?
Yeah, exactly.
I think at times when I go home, I think, do I really want to enter the danger and say what's really going on? And so I think partly as a Scrum Master, you do an honest self-assessment, like where am I at?
Yeah, exactly.
What's this about? And I would flip it as a leader, because there is the leadership class, the Certified Agile Leadership class, which I think is tooling that's really helpful.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Do leaders invite feedback? Do leaders invite that conversation? What have you seen? Predominantly, are they out there seeking the truth, asking without, slamming the team or getting upset with the team or not giving them a positive response? You see that leaders in general are inviting feedback and asking questions just to find out the truth versus what they would like to hear.
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
I took that Cal course. It really gave me amazing options to talk with senior management. And I had a client a while ago, and we kind of walked through Lilos, if I'm saying it right, corporate structures kind of. And this is a very much of an orange organization. They were happy with it. They were traditional, really, and they loved their management structure. I think, oh, gee, how are we gonna do a Scrum team in here? And so I told them that initially that we couldn't do Scrum, but let's just start with Kanban. That way we don't have to change a lot of structures, and we'll see how the team works out. And then they were ready to go to Scrum. They felt it was important. And then we had to hit on these issues of, do you have the structures in place? And do you have where's your Scrum Master, product owner? Those two things are really important. Dedicated, self-organized teams. So then that's where we left that conversation. So they were very much focused on their structure, and I wasn't able to challenge them out of that. But the big deal was I had a foundation of which I could even have that conversation. And without the information I got from the Cal course, I wouldn't have been able to even have that conversation.
I think that's a key point, is I don't feel that we actually give the leaders some of these tools that they really could use. So for example, and we walked through some of this with a recent client where we went through some of the same Agile leadership content, where they asked questions, they were more open-ended. So instead of a question being like, are you guys going to hit the date or not? That's a yes/no question versus flipping and saying, how's it looking on the date?
Yeah, exactly.
We can invite a lot more conversation. And even if it's not the answer you want to hit, what's the leader's response to that is, that's good to know, or thank you for the honesty, thank you for the feedback, versus what the heck, what happened there, right? So if I end up inadvertently, if I come across kind of tough, I just shut down that openness from my team. And it is a vulnerable spot. The other thing I think you're making me think of is, can you really enter that space? And this goes back to both Scrum Master and I think Advanced Scrum Master, where we dig into more on facilitation tools and coaching tools. Can I really meet people there if I haven't experienced that myself? That is, how can I have empathy for you if in your failure? Like, man, that sounds tough. If I never admitted that I failed, and I've been around people like, wow, yeah, so how'd you screw up? Versus, hey man, I've been there. When someone says, hey, I've been there, they have empathy to say, I've been in that spot. So as a coach or Scrum Master, or even a leader, have you faced situations where that meeting is going to be tough and you know that, right? You're telling them a story they don't want to hear, or you didn't own some part that led to the failure. Can you own that? And I kind of feel like if we don't self-reflect on some of that to say, where am I at?
Yeah, exactly.
Do I receive feedback? And I think what Brené Brown talks about authenticity is this accountability and action and making amends for those gaps. So I can be authentic with you. If you give me feedback, authenticity would be like, you know what, you're right. I should have gotten back to you on that email, and I can see why you would have thought that and the date slipping. So, you know what, from now on, I'll make sure I handle that, and let me make amends by going in and talking to them. And right, that's authenticity.
Exactly.
If I flip and say, well, you should have followed up again with me if I hadn't replied. Well, I'm not being real with you, right? There's no
no resolution.
No, but yeah. So how do you have a working relationship that you go to someone, you're either going to get kind of shut down on that question when they say, where's the, are you going to hit the date or not? Or if there's something where you need leadership support, you can kind of expect this answer. And I think part of the challenge that you said for leaders is we didn't give them tools to stop and say, you know what? I do kind of ask closed-ended questions. I don't receive feedback if someone says, well, I could have used your help on this, boss, and instead I flip it and say, well, I'm busy.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. How many times have you heard that?
The stuff from Avery's, Christopher Avery has this responsibility process. It's an excellent book and a good model, but he goes through and says, do you tend to justify things, or do you lay blame on others? And one small thing I had heard from Brené Brown that I really liked is she says blame is just a release of pain.
Oh yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So if I screwed up and I'm feeling it, the best thing I can do is blame someone else to discharge that pain. So catching that model, and I just had a conversation where someone's saying, well, I've got to do this. And I said, is that a have to, don't want to? You sound like it sounds like you're acting out of obligation. If you don't want to do that, you need to stop and say, yeah, I guess I don't want to do that, and we fix some of those things. So I think there's tools that we walk through for leaders. Honestly, when I was a manager, here's how they equipped me to be a manager. Hey Scott, you got a promotion, hurry up. The other guy left, so you're taking over these. That was my training to lead a large group in software development. I didn't know anything about owning that kind of stuff. I hate to say this, I learned a lot about deflecting in the corporate environment.
Oh, yeah.
I learned a lot about making sure CYA, hey, make sure there's a throat to choke that'll be someone else's, right? That's what I learned. I didn't learn, hey, be vulnerable. If something's, intense, hey, I was sweating bullets in there, check out these pits. I was really intense in that meeting. I wasn't being human. I felt like I was doing the opposite. So I think maybe leaders get unfortunately indoctrinated by what's already out there.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And we don't tell them anything different.
No.
But we sit them on these Scrum teams and say, oh, be transparent and open.
And then they don't know what to do. They go, well, I don't know. Well, you be transparent and I'll watch you. I've seen that happen. Right?
you go
Scrum
first.
Master, go first, and I'll watch how you do it, and I'll see if it works for me. You know?
I love that. Actually, there's some things I think as leaders, and back to the 5 dysfunctions of a team, the antidote for the absence of trust is for the leader to go first. So if you go first and say, hey guys, I just want to say, I know we biffed it on that release. My bad, I didn't communicate, stakeholders that we had some, that go first on vulnerability, only in admitting mistakes. You can learn from the Scrum teams, like, wow, they're so open. I could be open too, right?
Yes,
I can invite feedback to, hey team,
and
what am I
doing? It starts to build its own little positive feedback loop. And that's
it's a virtuous cycle that goes on. Yeah, I think there's a lot of good stuff. So it definitely, I guess as a wrap up, I definitely like what you're saying about do core Scrum right. I think that's always worth revisiting.
Absolutely. Because if you don't, you have no foundation.
No. We don't really know where we're at. We don't really know if it's working software or not. So you do core Scrum right. Really look at that. Yeah. I think if you're a Scrum Master, do look at the Advanced Scrum Master. There's a number of folks training out there.
Definitely.
Take a look.
With whoever you can find it. But it gave me a lot of tools, and I would not have traded it for anything.
No. Yeah, and for me, when I was first a Scrum Master, and this is 10 years ago, I knew very little about facilitation and coaching. I just had an idea of it. That's going to go deeper in that. And if you're in a leadership position, a mid-management position, definitely look at the CAL, Certified Agile Leadership, to say, how can I go deep on where am I at as a leader? Do I need to be the smartest person in the room?
Good point.
Yeah, picking up some coaching skills because you're coaching the organization and helping that part. And I'd add Craig Larman's Les class.
Oh, gee.
That's always the response. I got so much out of
my
that.
head. He ruined me forever, honest.
Yeah, Craig, if you're listening, you ruined us because
I don't know if to say thanks or not. I don't know.
You can't. Larry and I are saying you can't unthink it once you learn that. But he talks about seeing the system as a whole.
Yeah, that's very
and I think leader as someone who's improving the system as a whole across these division things. Those are powerful tools again to try to do some of that. So take a look at whatever that is for you and your team, your organization. Next step. There's lots of good stuff out there. Go out and see what you think.
For sure.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Is that it? Are we like done?
He cut us off in the middle of our last sentence. Oh, man.
Nice job.
Good.
Yeah.